For 1 week, Ferrari Jr. Oliver Bearman seemed to be the new phenomenon of Formula One. Then Carlos Sainz's return to his SF-24 car at the Albert Park circuit in the Australian Grand Prix, and the Spaniard's success in Melbourne partly overshadowed what still remains an excellent debut for Ollie in the most important motorsport series. The British driver, a member of the Ferrari Driver Academy, was ready for the Scuderia's call to replace the Spaniard at the Jeddah circuit in Saudi Arabia, as Carlos Sainz was forced to the hospital by an appendicitis attack that required emergency surgery. The young driver had missed Friday's free practice because Carlos Sainz was still driving, and Oliver Bearman had gone into action on Saturday in the final free practice session, showing an excellent ability to adapt to the increased power of the red car compared to the Dallara, with which he had taken pole position in the Formula 2 race, that he eventually then had to give up due to rules prohibiting competing in 2 categories of the same event. Oliver Bearman came very close to reaching the Q3 stage of the qualifying session for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, brought the Ferrari to 7th place at the checkered flag, preceding 2 more experienced Britons like Lando Norris for McLaren and Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes W15 car. But how should the debut of the Ferrari Academy driver member be evaluated? Certainly in a flattering way, for the simple reason that he brought the car to the finish line without making any errors and contributed to the points tally of the Prancing Horse, which could prove to be very important considering Ferrari's target of challenging Red Bull for the Constructors' Championship. That said, some curious behind-the-scenes details emerged over time, making the debut of a very young Formula One driver even more remarkable. Oliver Bearman demonstrated extraordinary mental capacity in managing pressure and avoiding errors that could have affected his performance. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The British driver had to overcome some difficulties and had an excellent adaptation to the Ferrari SF-24 car right from the start. Since being appointed as a reserve driver for the Prancing Horse, the Englishman has been involved in the development work of the SF-24 with simulator shifts. Oliver Bearman has always used Charles Leclerc's steering wheel, which is different from the one used by Carlos Sainz. At the Jeddah circuit, as soon as the Prima driver was put on standby to drive for Ferrari in Formula One, he asked Charles Leclerc for the possibility of using the Monegasque's steering wheel on the Ferrari Hash 38. Obviously, and not out of malice, Charles Leclerc refused, preferring to have a spare steering wheel at his disposal. A rational and non-punitive decision. The fact is that Oliver Bearman found himself discovering Carlos Sainz's steering wheel just before getting into the car. It should be noted that the 2 Ferrari drivers have rightly customized configurations for what they believe to be the best ergonomics in terms of steering wheel adjustments. The main difference is noticeable in the clutch control paddles. Charles Leclerc uses a single paddle on the right side, just below the gear paddle, while Sainz prefers to have 2 controls, one on each side, with a finger grip for insertion. The Spaniard likes the 2 paddles, which are positioned at 720, lower down where the steering wheel crown ends. It is intuitive that the activation of their respective paddles requires very different movements that need to be trained. Indeed, to be more precise, they must be memorized and automated during simulator training sessions. Therefore, Oliver Bearman could not have the best feeling in clutch engagement at the start. However, he was 11th on the grid and managed to maintain the position with dignity. Another surprise for Oliver Bearman came with the first activation of the DRS. The Englishman selected the button from where Carlos Sainz can trigger the movable wing, while on Charles Leclerc's steering wheel, it is the command that acts on the brake balance, so he risked changing the brake balance. It's not unusual for a driver to get confused, especially when there's a change in the computerized steering wheel. For intellectual honesty, it should be remembered that Charles Leclerc had also experienced a similar situation after requesting a modification to certain commands on the steering wheel in the second half of the 2023 Formula One season. The Monegasque in Abu Dhabi, convinced he was activating the radio, ended up having a bath with the liquid contained in the drinking bottle, forgetting the different setting. And it shouldn't be surprising if the drinking button on the SF-24 steering wheel has been removed. Riccardo Adami, Carlos Sainz's race engineer inherited by Oliver Bearman in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, had very positive words for the Ferrari Jr. He expressed surprise at the British driver's speed and quick understanding and execution of things they discussed beforehand. For example, they encountered a problem with the radio button remaining on, which Riccardo Adami briefly mentioned to him before the session. He explained that there are 2 radio buttons, one also located in the cockpit. Oliver Bearman immediately noticed it and reacted quickly by turning off the radio. The Ferrari Driver Academy member managed to assimilate a series of information acquired shortly before getting into the car. According to Riccardo Adami, Ollie Bearman was like a sponge that was able to absorb all the instructions he was given and was surprisingly good.